Okay, in this video we're going to talk about how to do your 7.4 worksheet version number 3. So I did put all the numbers over to the side, how it relates to problem 1 and this one, but it's not identical because this is a positive and this is a negative, so our answers are not going to be identical. So that's why I'm making 3 videos for this, one for each worksheet. Okay, so to start with, rewrite this in terms of sine and cosine. Well, secant is 1 over cosine, and tangent is sine over cosine. And then this is just 1 minus sine. Then they want you to multiply by 1 plus sine. And do FOIL. And then your Pythagorean identity is sine squared plus cosine squared is 1, or vice versa. Doesn't matter the order. And so then cosine squared would be 1 minus sine squared. So that just changes. And then your 2 cancels with this one, so you get cosine u on top. Cool. This one goes here. And then your cosine squared goes there. So this one goes there. Then your 2 cancels with it from cancellation. Okay, on this one, get a common denominator. So we've got to multiply. And then we want to put that right there. Well, I'm just going to draw a arrow. Then they want you to expand it. And this is the part that goes right there. That plus sine squared is there, and then I have got the same denominator. So basically, doing FOIL, 1 times 1 is 1, then you've got a negative cosine minus another one, it's negative 2 cosine, and then plus cosine squared. Then at this point, apply your Pythagorean identity so you know this part turns into 1, and then you've got 1 plus 1 is 2. So we have 2 minus 2 cosine theta, and then they just want you to factor out a 2. Well, let me do that over here. They want you to cancel that. And so you just have your 2 on top and your sine theta on bottom. And then 2 over sine is the same as 2 cosecant from a reciprocal identity. Okay, on this one we have to apply your Pythagorean identity. Sine squared is the same as 1 minus cosine squared. Then they want you to factor that. And then these are going to cancel, and 1 minus 1 cancels. Then you end up with negative times negative cosine is positive cosine. So it does simplify to that from cancellation and simplifying further. Okay, on this one, we've got secant of negative x equal positive secant of x. This is from your odd and even right there. Remember, secant relates to cosine, so both would be on the right side. So your negative x means goes backwards, and positive x would go forwards. So for cosine and for sine, for cosine and secant, those are the same. But for everything else, you got to have a negative sign in front. So cosine and secant work that way. So then this changes to just secant theta, or secant theta squared. And we can rewrite that like this. Then your tangent Pythagorean identity looks like this. 1 plus tangent squared theta equals secant squared. And so then we're going to replace this and then your 1's are going to cancel. So for number 4, that ends up being B. So we have the original, and then secant squared minus 1, and then that's really secant squared minus 1, and then that's really tangent squared. Okay, number 5, on this one they want you to multiply and simplify it. So you've got cosine squared these are both negative, so you have negative cosine sine minus another one gives you 2, and then plus sine squared. Then remember that cosine squared plus sine squared is 1, and then 1 minus 1 cancels. So then you have negative 2 cosine theta sine theta over sine theta cosine theta. And the order does not matter, and so on this one you just end up with negative 2. Okay, here we need to rewrite it as 1 over cosine, and that would be sine over cosine, which is tangent, using a quotient because it involves division, and it's not just 1 over something. Okay, on this one they want 1 over sine and 1 over cosine. So then you're going to have 2 cosine, and then sine times 1 is sine. So that would change to 3 cosine theta over sine theta, which is 3 cotangent, using addition and a quotient. On this one, they want you to get a common denominator. And so this top needs cosine. And the bottom needs sine. For this one. Then you're going to want to distribute and it's negative cosine times sine, those cancel. And then cosine squared plus sine squared is 1. And so after everything, we get 1 over sine theta cosine theta. Okay, on this one, factor your denominator first. And so you get 3 sine squared, and then 3 sine plus 1 sine is 4 sine. And to factor your numerator, you're going to match the 3 sine plus 1. And so then you end up with 4 sine plus 1. So basically 3 sine times 4 sine is 12 sine, and then 3 sine plus 4 sine is 7 sine, and then you get 1. So then this cancels, and you end up with 4 sine theta plus 1 over sine theta plus 1. Okay, the next one, you're going to get sine theta 1 plus cosine theta, and this one, 1 times 1 is 1. Your pluses and minuses for your middle terms are going to cancel, so you get minus cosine squared, and that's equivalent to sine squared. And then this cancels with your 2. So you get 1 plus cosine theta over sine theta. Okay, on the next one, this was expanded into this. 5 squared is 25, then you've got 30, and then double it, you get 60, and then 6 squared is 36. So ours are going to use the same type numbers. We're going to get 36 cosine squared theta minus 30 times 2 is negative 60, and then plus 25. So that would go in your first blank. So notice your negative 60 plus 60 cancels, and we just need to do 36 plus 25, which is 61. So we get 61 cosine squared theta plus 61 sine squared theta. Then factor out the common term which is 61. And then that's really just 1. By the way, it basically shows you what number you're supposed to end up with. And then that would be from the Pythagorean identity. Okay, on this one, difference of two squares, secant times secant is secant squared. And then your inside and outside cancel, so you get minus tangent squared. And that's equivalent to 1 using the Pythagorean identity. So basically, you've got your 1 plus tangent squared is equal to secant squared, so if you move this over, it simplifies to 1 through the Pythagorean identity. Then this one, rewrite it in terms of sine and cosine. So cotangent would be cosine over sine, and secant would be 1 over cosine. And then these cancel, so you get 1 over sine. Then on this one, rewrite it, cotangent is cosine over sine. Tangent is sine over cosine. And then simplify it in the part that's inside the parentheses by getting a common denominator. So this would have to be cosine squared plus sine squared. So basically it needed an extra cosine, so that changed to cosine squared. And this one needed an extra sine, so it changes to sine squared. And then this just changes to 1. So we've got 1 over sine theta cosine theta. Then your cosines cancel, and so you get 1 over sine, which is cosecant through a reciprocal identity. Quotient would be if it's sine over cosine or cosine over sine. So there's your quotient ones. Your reciprocals are the ones with 1 over. And that's the end of that video.